Hello and welcome to the session on big data. So there's so much of data around you. Organizations tend to collect a lot of data as well. What is big data? Big data refers from your traditional collections of data in the sense that they're so voluminous. All those technologies, mechanisms that were used to process your traditional data will not really help you with your big data. Let's just try and understand what is this concept of big data that we are talking about in the recent times. There are three V's which are used to define big data: the volume, velocity, and variety. You're able to see that on the slide here. Now, what do you mean by volume? Look at the volume of data, the amount of data that is generated. So for an organization like Procter & Gamble, that could come in terms of the customer shopping history, customers visiting their website, the click streams, an angry customer going and posting something on Twitter, a Facebook recommendation for a P&G product. It could be a lot of data coming in from different sources. That's volume. Second, velocity, the rate at which data is generated. So we are living in times where data is being generated at so fast a pace that organizations have to be bothered the speed at which that data is being generated. Because if you look at the statistics, you will be able to find that in an internet minute, this is the kind of growth that is happening. And that growth is definitely staggering. This is the velocity with which big data is associated. The third V will happen with variety. You're dealing not with one type of data, but you're dealing with structured data, you're dealing with semi-structured data, you're dealing with unstructured data. This is what is referred to as a third V of big data, also called as variety. In recent times, there are other V's which have been ascribed to big data. For instance, value and veracity. Does it really, all the data that is coming into your organization, is this of value? Intrinsic believability, objectivity, all of that, is it there for your data? And veracity is the truthfulness of your data. How much does it really convey about the information under, or the object under study, the event under study? Now remember, the traditional approach was to go for a structured and repeatable analysis. So the business probably wanted a report as to how much sales happened on product X, and the technology part would yield those answers on the basis of certain, on the basis of certain business intelligence mechanisms, typical reporting mechanisms. Today, the scenario is completely different. We have the big data approach where the IT, the technology, delivers a platform which enables creative discoveries, patterns which you did not know really existed before. For example, Walmart discovering that it is the Pop-Tarts that sell during a hurricane warning is a great discovery for them. So the businesses begin to explore what questions could be really asked. There is iterative and there is exploratory analysis that happens as a result of big data. The value of big data is, of course, undisputable. For instance, look at this particular figure and you're able to see how a bank is able to generate a lot of data, a lot of profile, a very intense profile of its clientele on the basis of data that has been generated in the Foursquare app. So now they know that majority of their clients works in the city center, lives close to the city border. Most of their shopping is done near their living places and not in the city centers where they work. They use the underground tube to travel. They prefer the bars and cafes to restaurants. They prefer sport entertainment than art, and they prefer parks within the city bounds for recreation. Very valuable for your further marketing or further enhancing your customer experience. Look at the kind of profiling that has been done by a bank. The credit card offerings, all your loan offerings, whatever that you are trying to offer as a part of your bank to your customer could definitely be driven by this data that you've collected about your customers. That's big data for organization, and that's how critical it is. Thank you. Hello. Welcome to the session on data privacy and ethics. Of course, there is a lot of data that is being generated in and around organizations. There is also one very valuable thing that organizations need to take care when they're dealing with data: the privacy and the ethical issues that surround data. Let me just give you an understanding of what privacy is and what ethics is when it comes to data. Data privacy would mean responsibly collecting, using, and storing data about people in line with the expectations of the organization which is collecting and the consumers whose data are being collected. Ethics would be what you do with that data, doing the right thing with the data that is being collected, and considering the human impact from all sides, including the decision making that happens within organizations. And of course, for an organization like Amazon or Walmart or even Facebook, there is definitely a lot of personal information that is being collected. And personal information is a marketable commodity. And that's precisely the reason why Facebook went on to acquire something like WhatsApp, because data is so valuable. And therefore, it is the prerogative of the organizations to ensure the privacy and the ethics of the data that they have in store. Some of the important issues that are connected with data privacy and ethics will include the privacy and the confidentiality of the data, the integrity and the quality of the data, and the security and the storage of the data. Remember, you need to be looking at three important questions. What is allowed legally? You might have the Freedom of Information Act, you might have Data Privacy Act, you might have laws and regulations that are bound to act on the way that you deal with the data. The second, what is it that an organization is likely to do with the data? And the third question, what can be done technically with this data? So these three questions are important to be asked and reflected upon when you are dealing with the data that you've collected within organizations. A very good example to highlight all these three questions would that be of the Cambridge Analytica and Facebook scandal. Look at how Facebook users were subject to a game and they played it very gleefully. All the while, they were not aware that the information that they were sharing, not only them, but even their friends and friends of friends, were being used in order to develop what is referred to as a political profile. Political profiling is very important because it can make or break elections, and it is being done by country leaders across the world. So, it is important. Now relate back to these questions again. What can be done legally? What can be done technically? And what is it that the organization would like to do? Where exactly is it going to fall within these legal and technical range? Another example was the controversial GPS tracking plan that was provided on the Ford vehicles. So organizations need to consider a few of these important aspects when you are looking at data privacy. Context. What is the context? What is the situation under which the data is being used for? The consent and choice. Is there informed consent from the user with regard to the data that you're using? Reasonableness. Is it being used? Substantiation. Is it being used in the correct context of the task? Owned. Who really owns this particular data? Fairness. What is the kind of, are there fair mechanisms and procedures to deal with the data? Consequences. What are the intended outcomes? What is the consequence of using this kind of data in your decision making or in the organization? What is the access? Who has access to these different levels of data within the organization? In case of unintended consequences, who is accountable? Who holds the responsibility for all these kind of decisions or consequences of this data? Data privacy and ethics has become important, especially for organizations that are relying more and more on the data that they are collecting about their consumers. Thank you.